Hello, and welcome to Seriously Connected, a podcast for women in business. I'm Marcella Hammer, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Palette Community, which is all about bringing people together for collaboration and kindness. And one of our amazing events that we do to bring our community together is called the Pro Talk. This past year, in 2024, our hosts created a story slam based around the theme of making waves, and it was inspired by a program called The Moth, which if you don't know, you should. What we found is that these entrepreneurs had something in common, and it was that they had all overcome difficulties and challenges in their lives. And here's part one of a two-part series where you're going to get to hear these pro talks and hear about the overcoming of challenges and making waves.
All right, friends, so Bernie Zabrowski was this dude, one of the dudes who had the idea to create the bubble wand. We've been blowing bubbles perhaps our whole lives and maybe never thought that some person saw the potential to make magic in a little wand.
He's my best friend.
So as I like to do when we start off, I love to do a little centering, and I want to make it as playful as possible. And this is something I do with kids, but I really want us as grown-ups to tap into it and find that playfulness. So what I teach kids, you can do this with your bubble wand or even just pretend, is to hold the wand. Actually, you can think about Bernie, but you can think about just the idea that someone came up with this idea for the first time and made it possible for us, and maybe we take for granted how cool it is that we can blow bubbles anytime we want. So this is what we do. We will loosen your little wand a bit here, noticing what the wand looks like, taking a breath as you lift the wand up, and then blow. Now we all know that if we lifted the wand up and just went, not making great bubbles, right? But this idea of slowing down and actually even just taking a breath before you blow bubbles can completely change the experience. So enjoy that for a second. And then I was talking to Cody, I said, doesn't every grown-up need to be filled with, in a room that's filled with 1,000 bubbles? So just for a second, the delight, the pure delight. So just notice for a second, and then when I turn this off, you could just watch and follow a couple bubbles, and I guarantee that after we've been here for a minute or two, you're still gonna find these little wisps of bubbles filling our space. So if bubbles don't say, hi Sarah, if bubbles don't say summer to you and youthful playfulness, then that's okay, but let's find out a way. We'll just be quiet for 1 second while we watch those bubbles. They actually go away pretty fast, don't they? Welcome everyone to our July Pro Talk. We have a smaller group today and we have a totally different format. So this is a very once in a lifetime experience. Thank you all for coming here. My name is Leah Ferrone. I'm the founder of Brave Lion, and it is my mission to offer neuroscience and nature-based mindfulness tools to students, educators, and school communities.
I'm Juliana Russell, Leah's sister, and I am on a mission to empower young children to learn a new language and become forever fluent kids. And I'm an author. I write children's books in different languages for kids.
Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Which one?
The one that I just purchased.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. That one?
Nice. So your kiddos are going to enjoy a 12-chapter novel, fully in Spanish at their level, a graded reader of Salt, Pepper, and Sunny, and they have to go find the word thief. Hint, the word thief becomes their friend. But anyway, the word thief doesn't make it into book 2, which I am going to Cape Cod tomorrow to write the sequel to the word thief.
Because she's just an author who retreats.
So
yeah.
honestly, I have to write the second book because the kids are on chapter 9 of 12. So I'm like, I have to get them more material. So I got to write the book and then send it to the illustrator. And then we got to start translating. So yes, Lee and I.
Hold on a second. Juliana, just I'm going to stay here for a second. Your stories. The thing that makes Juliana's learning style and pedagogy so powerful is that it's learning languages through storytelling, and it's something that families can do with their children. So it's not having an adult or like adult-led learning. It's something that they do together that's accessible to them. And she's got it published in 8 languages.
8 languages.
Yeah. So
we're on the 4th iteration of the Korean translation. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Whew, learned so much.
So, friends, thank you.
Yeah.
Now we're done, okay.
So, Leah and I, we have been doing these Pro Mixers since February, and we knew it was going to have an impact, but boy, today is like making a huge impact, and we really have to thank Christine from Bright-Sided Podcast to present this opportunity to us. This is like really huge.
I need good audio, guys. It's just how it goes. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Christine O'Donnell. If we haven't met yet, my background's in TV news. I was a journalist for a very long time before finding myself in marketing and now podcasting. And for the past 6 years, I've been developing and producing chart-topping podcasts with some influencers that you might know, and it might be a podcast you're currently listening to. At least I hope so. And if it's not, it could be. But I have a studio right here in Palette. So if anybody ever wants to utilize it, we have a membership for people to join and utilize it each month. So I'm so happy to be partnering with the We Wonder Sisters because
watch out for that name. I feel like
it's good. It's a good name. And the reason that I'm here recording audio and video of this is because of this woman over here, Helen Mastrian. We are community funding the production of these bonus episodes in the Seriously Catherine podcast. And Catherine Hover is the founder of Palette and one of our collaborators on this project as well. And so if you guys are interested in sponsoring an episode, or if you're going to be part of the Story Slam, we're just asking for donations. And they start at what's anything, really. If you can donate anything, please donate. There are QR codes. Or you can go ahead and sponsor.
Do the whole shabam and sponsor it. Be like Helen. Hashtag be like Helen. That's kind of... Honestly, I think we're going to hashtag and just say be like Helen because she jumped on it. And
somebody
Helen's
write that down.
No, we're hashtagging. Because Helen, when you were one of the OGs that came to the mixers, you believed in it in the very beginning, and you're like a hell yes woman, and we need that. So for you to be like, yeah, I'm going to sponsor it. Be like Helen. So to think about it, you're running a business, you have your yearly budgeting of what you want to do. Maybe this might be an option for you. Because boy, this girl is good.
And you'll be able to find the episodes on YouTube and also everywhere you listen to podcasts. So you're going to get high quality video product as well as audio product that you can utilize. So if you're going to be up here on stage, that also might be a good time for you to sponsor. Just to make sure you have that content for your own marketing purposes for social media forever and ever and ever.
Also, another piece I wanted to say too is if you don't want the spotlight, but you also want your business to be known, a sponsor is a nice way to have a gentle but also vibrant way of saying this is who I am.
Well, so when I joined Palette because I sold Catherine Hover's house, I met Christine and her husband Steve because I sold them a house. They moved here from California. And so I wanted to give back.
Wow.
And I have an office. Hunt Real Estate has an office on Broadway. I didn't need the office space, but I started to come to the Pro Mixers because I had history with these two gals. And I fell in love with Palette and said, you know what?
Wow.
It's not about the office. It's about the people. It's about the camaraderie. It's about the women here who are just amazing and wonderful people. And whether you come, there's so many new faces here today. That's kind of why I joined. And so it's a great vibe. It's a monthly pick-me-up. Now I'm here all the time, especially if you need a restroom or you need something on Broadway. You got to stop into Palette. But it's a great scene, and I just highly, highly recommend. That's all.
It's really for
Anyway.
the restroom.
Oh, and I would love to introduce, I brought a guest today. So recently I launched a podcast courtesy of the great Christine O'Donnell and Steve too, behind the scenes guy, but come on. Jess, come on in.
This is a commercial.
So,
No, go back. No, you gotta go again. And
Wow.
Slow.
Okay.
Slow, sis. That's it.
Good Lord.
Vanna White. Slow.
Okay,
You guys can
that
get your
is
own
a
banner, too.
commercial. Unplanned, spontaneous.
Best Vanna White I've seen.
So when we launched the podcast, I wanted to do something a little different. And so one day I was in Franklin Square Market and I saw these unbelievable cookies. And I'm a baker at heart. I love to bake. I don't bake as much anymore. I saw these cookies. There was a QR code on the back. I, of course, zoomed in and went to the cooking class or the decorating class of the cookies of Lady Lily's place. And Lady Lily is Tracy Passaro, who is my guest in the back. And she'll tell her story, but it's an amazing story. She does custom cookies where for every dressing room at Live Nation at SPAC. Wow. Which is like, whoa, what a connection. And I'm like, Tracy, can you get me a good seat, a good concert tickets? And she's like, I go backstage. I don't need that. So anywho, she's going to tell her story. But so she made cookies for us for today with the Palette logo. She can do anything. She did for my podcast launch a cookie with Noelle and my photos on it. Selling Saratoga podcast. It's an amazing and wonderful company, and I'm glad that she came today. That's it. Yeah. All right.
The Pro Talk format is that we highlight 3 Palette members, and each of them get 5 minutes to speak to who they are, what their passion is, really anything that they want us to know.
5-minute TED Talk, essentially.
Yeah, it's like a mini TED Talk. And we highlight 3 people. They sit on the couch. And so we're having so much fun. We're actually booking out through March with our speakers. You can see that if you are a member on the Circle app. And I have been a long time lover and avid Moth listener. And I've always had the dream of being on the Moth. And I do plan to submit a story at some point.
You will.
I will. So when I heard about this game that it's called Storytelling, the Moth Storytelling game, here it is. It's just like a box full of prompts. I said, Jules, why don't we hear from more people in July?
Right, because we've been hearing, you guys have been sharing a lot more, we've noticed, that people are elaborating, the audience is talking more, and it's become a dialogue, actually, which we're like, yes.
Right, so if we're booking out through March and people won't get a chance to sit on the couch, like this is the perfect time. We're gonna do something similar in December for people to tell any kind of story.
Well, I like choosing, I like having a prompt, though.
Oh no, we
did already,
definitely
yeah.
have 3 prompts for today. So our thought today was to have a story slam, and this also is an opportunity for you to step a little bit outside your comfort zone, maybe, and just sit here and have a mic in front of you and just tell something about your life from your heart. And I think anybody and everyone will benefit from that. So
Imperfectly, too. Like, I actually don't know what to say. Okay. I have a couple of ideas. I'm like, do I go heavy? Do I go light? Is this boring? I don't know what to do.
On the other hand, I've been rehearsing for 2 weeks. So our
shall we start?
theme is making waves. That was what the card was. And the 3 prompts that we're inviting you to call upon are a time that you disrupted the peace, a time that you went against the grain, or a time you made a splash. What we're going to do is I'm going to tell my story. And then Juliana, if you want to go next, you can.
I'll
Okay. So Juliana and I will tell our stories, and then we'll ask if there are volunteers. We also have an option to pick randomly, which of course you can always pass, but we just encourage you to try. We want to hear from you. If these prompts are making you feel anxious and they don't feel right, and you want to tell us a different 3 to 5 minute story, you can.
When I was thinking about my story, I just want to preface real quick here. When we're talking about going against the grain, making waves, and
Disturbing the peace.
okay, so when you think of that can be an external thing, but I actually think I'm going to talk about an internal thing. So think about that. It doesn't have to be like a time they made a splash in a community and you stood up and said, "Hey, that's not right." Like, no, it's not. It doesn't have to be that. It actually can be. I do think I'm going to talk about when I disrupted some peace. I call it peace because it's not really peace, but when you made like a really drastic shift in your life. You're like, we got to go left here. So think about those situations where I think that's what I'm going to talk about in a veiled way.
When I was in middle school, I had 2 big time crushes. The first was on Brian Stacks. He was tall and lanky. He had fluffy brown hair and a splattering of freckles, braces, and he was an awesome artist. He drew like the coolest Calvin and Hobbes cartoons, which were all the rage at the time. The other crush was on Greg Louganis. Now, to me, at the time, both of these crushes made perfect sense. So Brian was a 6th grade classmate, totally adorable, and also not interested in me. And Greg Louganis was the sweetheart of the Olympic Games that year in Seoul. I was totally captivated by Greg Louganis, as well as the whole sport of competitive diving. I had just learned how to dive, and I was terrible at it, and I actually didn't understand the hype. So to watch these athletes climb just stories up to this platform and torpedo their bodies to a pool below, like, blew my mind. And I was so intent on catching every detail. We would watch as a family. This one was only like, no, wait.
Yeah, I was alive.
88?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
I was
And
I was there. I don't have any memory. You have so many more memories of the family. It's so. Yeah.
also years.
I know, because I'm saying it's the years. Like, there's just stuff that I'll never know.
So this part was not rehearsed, so I have to go back to my part of the story. Okay, so we would watch as a family, and I don't remember if it was my parent or a commentator, but someone said that the splash at the end of the dive mattered. So your splash size was important. So when I had that nugget of information, I fancied myself to be a diving expert judge. And I lived for that splash. I also lived for when Greg would come out of the pool. For obvious reasons, to me at the time, as an 11-year-old girl, he always had this huge smile, other assets, and he would grab this magical like swim towel that would instantly dry his tawny Malibu sun-kissed skin, like instantly. And all the divers used this swim chamois, I learned is what it was called. I had to have one. So with zero diving experience or even aspirations of being a diver, I tried to convince my parents to buy me a swim chamois, and for some reason they agreed. So soon thereafter, I was the proud owner of a light aqua swim chamois that had this like cool late 80s like plastic rectangle box, and I took it with me every day when we went to the Bethesda public pool. I always had the fantasy I would run into Brian Stacks, and he would just happen to be at the pool randomly, and I'd be in the diving tank where all the cool older kids hung out, not diving, and I'd come out of the pool and grab my swim chamois, and he'd notice me and be so intrigued by my gear that he would immediately ask me out, but in a cool way, like, Leah, will you be the Hobbes to my Calvin? To which I would swing the chamois over my shoulder and say very confidently, like, sure, Brian, sounds good. That didn't happen. Like, that didn't even come close to happening. I didn't even see Brian that summer. But we went to the Bethesda public pool all the time. We had just moved from New York to Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C. to us was like the actual tropics. It was so hot and it was so humid. Our young, growing family took refuge there at the pool all the time. One of my most favorite memories was what seemed like a spontaneous let's go for a swim after dinner from my parents, which they maybe had planned, and we would go for a quick dip at like 6:30 before the pool closed for the evening. I remember the layout of that pool like it was the back of my hand, and the swim lanes were like all business, and that was really reserved for people who knew what they were doing. I think at that point I convinced my parents to give me just like one swim lesson, and I learned the side stroke, which is also the only stroke I know today. But it was because the instructor gave such a beautiful visual. She said, just imagine that you're picking an apple off a tree and putting it in your basket. So every time I swim now at almost 47 years old, I am transporting myself to an apple orchard. Greg Louganis would go on to win gold medals that year too. And I knew this was gonna happen because his splash was so teeny tiny and cute. But what I didn't know, and what nobody actually knew, is that Greg Louganis was privately living as a gay man who had just 6 months prior to the game been diagnosed with HIV, to which he held as a secret within. So just to think about the conflict, internal peace he was trying to make when the stakes and the pressure could actually not be higher. You may remember as well, he had an injury during those Olympics from which I do not remember seeing that. But in the years to come, that made a huge splash of controversy in the news. But I was just this 11-year-old girl watching this charming 28-year-old man accomplish heroic feats in the pool. And it was 1988, right? So the AIDS epidemic was defined by fear and stigma and ignorance. And again, I was completely oblivious. As for Brian Stacks, I would eventually have my crush reciprocated, but only when he found out we were moving back to New York. So just a couple days before we moved 400 miles away, our 8th grade class had a graduation pool party. I wore a navy J. Crew one piece with white polka dots. The swim chamois had long been forgotten and lost. And all of us girls were like huddling by the chairs trying to figure out a way to confidently and casually walk to the pool so that we weren't seen, but that we were totally seen. And it was awkward, and we were all buzzing with hormones. And at one moment, split second, I decided to leave a lasting impression on Brian Stacks. And I very ungracefully and unceremoniously ran to the pool and launched myself into a jackknife and made the biggest splash ever. Thank you. There you go. That's one way it can be done.
So I'm going to talk about my year as a monk. And it's not the monk that you're thinking about, but it was a year of a monk. And what I mean by that is I realized it was about maybe 12 years ago that I had to make a big change. So the only way I kind of do things black and white. I try to be like, more balanced. I'm going to get a tattoo to remind myself of just like the balance of everything. But the year of the monk was really important for me. And the year of the monk allowed me to find two loves in my life. And what I realized in the year of the monk, what I was really trying to understand was the quietness to have within yourself. And so what I did in the year of the monk was I stopped playing around. What I meant by that was like, I am not dating a single soul. Like I just had to stop it all because it got to this point where I just felt like I was toying with people's emotions. It wasn't like I was sleazy and stuff like that, like going around with all these people. It wasn't that. It was the emotional piece. So what I found after, it was in the year 2012, and I had come back from Argentina where I had definitely some reoccurrences, some serious stuff happened where it felt like you better change the way that you interact with yourself, which means like your first love is yourself, and you gotta like get real quiet with yourself. And that's what I mean, the year of the monk is like, you gotta close it off. You gotta close it off. Like you have to close off toying with guys' emotions, and you need to, like just really get in, because it just felt like if you don't disrupt this thing that's churning and continuing going on, you're never, first of all, you're never gonna find that true love within yourself, which is yourself, that inner divinity. So, very big twist here, huh? I just didn't, I don't know, I was thinking like, okay, should I talk about how I quit my job and like start my own language business, or went on a severe elimination diet to help myself from Crohn's disease? I don't know. I mean, I feel like everybody does that stuff, but, you know what I mean? Like, honestly, it was insane.
Why don't you talk about when you ran with the bull? She's like, nah.
So I ran with the bull. I don't know. I was just like, but I'm just thinking about like when I made a splash, because I thought like, it was that defining moment that when I was able to take that year of the monk, that I actually fell in love with myself. And then I was able to actually find my husband, who I thought was supposed to be in Argentina because I speak Spanish, and I thought I'm going to have a Spanish-speaking husband. But no, he was just a guy from high school. That's been here that's it. That's been here the whole time. And so to go back to that, my year of the monk showed me that my love, the first love is that love for yourself. That is the first love. And I'm so excited because tomorrow morning at 5:30, I'm going to go on a 5-day weekend, to Cape Cod with the love of my life, which is myself. I'm so excited for camp. I can't wait. Bringing watercolors, all the things.
My name's Nicole. I love these sisters so much. I'm so happy to be here. So same thing, Jules. I feel like I've gone against the grain a bunch in my life, but on the walk here, I started to think about one time recently in my career. So professionally, I do social media. I'm on a team of one now, but at the time, a couple years ago when I first started, it was a team of 2. And, a lot of times, if anyone has this experience, social is kind of seen as like, oh, it's an intern's job, or maybe, not serious in the marketing strategy, although we all know the power of social media, right? It's a necessary evil, I guess. So my teammate and I thought, hey, why don't we do something different? So in terms of kind of making a splash at this organization, we came up with the idea of TikTok Hell Week. So, excuse my language. But so the idea behind it was we had a week full of video prompts, different things that people in this 80-person organization could sign up for. So we're talking the CFO, the CEO, everybody in, finance, operations, different types of people. So really to showcase, get everybody involved and to showcase, just have fun, honestly, and to help us out. But when I think about, my role in the company, it really put a stake in the ground for what we do. And we had so much fun with it. We made this splash in the organization every single day. It was like, who's up? Yeah, like we're doing this video, we're filming this. So kind of an interesting example. But again, when I was thinking about, the day-to-day and kind of going against the grain, it really was kind of unconventional. I don't know. We ended up making like 50 videos in 5 days, and we garnered a lot of views and impressions. And I know that seems weird, and I'm honestly kind of sick of talking about social media. We talk about this all the time, but I think more so is the power of community and getting people together and connecting, and also like having an appreciation for what people do, and working with different people and recognizing different personalities. So
I'm Sarah Hutcherson, and I own Slow Breathworks, and I'm here to read you a Tonka. So that's why it's so funny, like reading my writing is very scary to me. Like it brings me back to when I was in 9th grade with Miss McNamara, and she was like, that wasn't good enough. And I'm like, Miss McNamara, no, but that's where I go. But Tonka's like a haiku and Marcella, it was Marcella here? No, Marcella is also really into it, and she told me more about the Tonka. But the haiku, it's a haiku, so it's 5 syllables in the beginning, 7 in the middle, 5 afterwards, and then 2 lines of 7 syllables. So it kind of like adds a little bit of, like I think of sprinkles on ice cream sundae. So mine is about, I love to fly fish. And it's something I've been rediscovering this year, being back east and being near my dad. It's something we've done together. And here we go. The brookie bubbles to the surface, seeking the parachute atoms. Seeking safety in what's next, making waves in Furnace Creek. So I said seeking twice, which is interesting. So I've been doing it each day and not overthinking it, and I write what I write, and that's it.
Can you read it again?
Sure. I'm not reading this. I added a little syllable. Cool, okay. The brookie bubbles. So brookies are the fish, their nickname. Okay. Brookie bubbles to the surface, seeking the parachute atoms, seeking safety in what's next, making waves in Furnace Creek. So, yeah.
I love that.
And
Brookie bubbles.
And when I thought of that, I did that. I was in the corner like dibbling in it, but I had it. I was on the river this weekend on Furnace Creek, and it was really cool to see them come up. And parachute atoms is a fly that you can tie. That's a crossbreed of different insects. And what is really neat about brookies is they'll splash and they'll make these waves, but they are very subtle about it. Like, they're very sensitive creatures. And so their wave you won't even notice unless you're really seeking it. And so my thought for you is to just take time and look around and notice all the waves being made. So
Sarah, that's beautiful.
thank you.
Oh,
Hello, friends. I'm Cody Wassel. I'm America's Joy Catalyst. I do transformational life coaching and speaking and all sorts of other things. And I like elephants. There's that. But I do want to talk about a time that I went against the grain. And I used to own a doggy daycare boarding facility locally called Cody's Cozy Pals. And I was very young and I was new in the industry, but I was the best in the industry. And I kept growing and growing and growing. And before you know it, this business grew to like $500,000 a year. And I wasn't happy anymore. And I would always be seeking things. I loved my dog. I had a Neapolitan Mastiff. Earlier when you said Neapolitan ice cream, it made me think of my dog, Laszlo. And he was gray and beautiful. Well, they called it blue technically. And he had like some health issues and things, and I would foster dogs, and if they had issues, and I always wanted to seek something better for them. You know, I'm like, oh, I really didn't do well with that one. Let me do better for the next one. And I would start to look at like holistic opportunities. I would want to understand what the vet is diagnosing. I would be like, why are you just treating a symptom versus the whole thing, right? And in all of this learning, I became an expert in my field. And so I decided that I was going to not have the dogs have to be mandated to take the Bordetella vaccine. The Bordetella is this kennel cough vaccine that, for insurance purposes, most companies that have dogs make you do this vaccine thing, right? And I was like, well, this is absurd because the animals are still leaving and they're sick. In fact, if I have 100 dogs boarding, 90 of them are leaving with kennel cough that you just vaccinated them for. Why? There's a problem, obviously. And people would get mad at me that their dog was sick, which was silly. But that really like hurt me. You know, at the time I was still working on like my confidence as who as I was and how am I going to show up? And man, these people are mad at me. And every time somebody was mad at me, I thought the world was caving in and that my business was going to go under. And like, oh my gosh, this dog got sick and it's all over, Cody. That's not true at all. And so through the process of this owning of the business, I noticed that you really never, if you are really who you are and you're sharing that and you're 100% you really can't mess up and it's still going to work and it's okay if people get mad. But regardless, I went against the grain. I did. And so what I started to do was I told my clients, you do not have to give your dog the Bordetella vaccine. It is no longer mandatory. I was the first one in the Capital District to tell people that it was not mandatory. And I got a whole bunch of shit for it. Boy, let me tell you. I mean, my clients were mad. What do you mean? I said, well, in fact, not only is it not mandatory, but if you get the vaccine, you're not allowed to come in my building for 14 days. Because there's a shedding period. And if we're going to stop this process, then if you decide that it's within your comfort that you want your animal to have this vaccine, 100% okay, I support you, but you can't come back for daycare or boarding for 14 days. Well, this is very inconvenient for the modern world, in case you were wondering. So they were very, very mad, very, very upset. And the end of the study, after 6 months, I hear my beep. I will end in a moment.
That's you. Don't blame me.
After like 6 months of watching this and me shifting all of this, that winter when I had 100 dogs boarding, 2 of them got sick. So the proof is in the pudding. Definitely go against the grain. When your heart tells you something, it works. So trust it.
Way to do the research too, though.
Thank you.
Like you're
I was
like
passionate.
I know. Like I'm going to become a complete professional and figure out all of this and do it. Like
I
that's
love my dog.
My name is Nicole Pellegrini, and I own so many different businesses. I don't want to get into all of them because I don't want it to eat up my time, but just to give you a gist, and we can talk more later, I do brand copywriting and strategy/marketing as a freelancer. I make jewelry. I have a little Etsy shop, and sometimes I come to pop-up markets, and I am a newly licensed real estate agent. Yeah. So anyway, so the story I kind of wanted to tell is not so much when I think I made a splash, although that might have been the result. But when the universe made a splash and I had to kind of learn how to ride the wave, and it was a really transformative time of my life. I was in my early 20s. I was in college. I had a boyfriend. Unfortunately, he was very toxic. It was a very toxic relationship. I was dealing with money struggles, and even though I had a job and all this other stuff. And so there was one night I was out with this toxic boyfriend. We had just broken up, but we're hanging out anyway because, you know, when you're in your early 20s, that's what you do. And so on our way home, we got into a terrible car accident. I was driving on the highway. I lived in California at the time, and someone had flipped their car and left it in the middle of the road. And so I hit that car because by the time I saw it, it was too late. So this kind of started, though, a whole series of events. Because I lost that car, some of my money troubles went away because I was paying it off. And that was, you know, that's hundreds of dollars a month now that I didn't have to deal with. Because I didn't have a way to travel, I was now seeing this toxic ex-boyfriend much less frequently. It forced me to do a job change because at the time I was actually a pizza delivery driver, and you can't really deliver pizza without a car. And so all these kind of events that were making me really unhappy and angry and depressed, and, you know, it was a space that I was comfortable being in anyway, sort of started to disappear from my life, and my life started to slow down, and I started connecting more with myself. This was the period of time when I discovered the book, The Power of Now. I started walking and taking the bus everywhere, which if you're taking the bus, that gives you a lot of free time to do some reading or podcast listening or inner reflection. You know, I found a job that I really actually enjoyed. When I finally got some payout from the car accident, I bought a bike instead of a car. So then I started riding my bike everywhere, and that was contributing to more of like a physical health and just general happiness and joy. And so, you know, it's interesting because you can be in one place in one moment and a completely different place the next. And what you decide to do with that change is entirely up to you. So, you know, if the universe is making a splash in your life, then just try and figure out how you want to ride that wave.
I love it.
Thank you.
It's like that's like the epitome of taking lemons into lemonade, right? Like you're like, oh my, this is crazy, and then your life completely transforms to the better.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. I'm up. Hi, everybody. I'm Karen Carey, and I'm a life and success coach. I have lots of different programs. I work with individuals and teams. I have lots of different tools like everybody else does. So I love what I do. I have an incredible passion for it, and I'm so grateful that I get to live this life. So it hasn't always been like this. There was a time I was 47 years old. I had lost my business. I had lost my home. I had lost pretty much everything. And I was working, I had a beauty salon, and I was working at another salon for someone who was working at my salon. And it was great, right? But I realized, like, I need to change. I don't think I can do it here. I live in Saratoga. I've grown up in this area. I think everybody sees me a certain way. I see me a certain way. And I decided that I was going to get rid of everything, drive across the country to Seattle, go to Arizona, live with my sister for a little bit, figure myself out. What you don't know is that I was scared to death of getting lost driving to Albany. Which is 35 miles away. I don't know. It's just something from my childhood, right? That sort of instilled that in me, like this fear of getting lost, even driving around Saratoga if I wasn't finding the right street. Oh my God, you know? But I decided that, so what? So what happened was the universe was listening, and they were like, I don't think Karen should drive across the country by herself. Maybe we should... So one night I go home from work, and I cannot sit down. I'm pacing the floors. I'm
like trying to watch a TV. I can't watch TV. I don't know what to do. I've never been to a bar or anything like that by myself. So I put my lipstick on, which I never wear. I keep on my fancy clothes from work, and I walk down to this bar, Bailey's. This is a local bar, but they have coffee there, right? So I'm going to go get a cup of tea and sit there and try to be a grown-up, right? So I walk in, and there is a new client of mine. His name is Kevin Carey, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. I'm like, woo, and he's like, oh, sit down. So we have this great conversation. He walks me home. 2 weeks later, he asked me to marry him.
Oh my gosh.
I say yes. You are going to meet this amazing man. I had been cutting his hair for 6 months, right? So I kind of knew him, and he was pretty cool. And everybody, guy crushes and girl crushes, everybody was talking about Kevin Carey, And so guess where he wanted to go? He wanted to live in the four corners of the United States. So we go to Florida, we go to Maine, we go to see, Washington State, and I'm like, I can't do this every 5 minutes. So anyway, we move a lot. I got this man with me who is, the perfect fit for me, and the universe takes care of us when we need to be taken care of. So
I love this. Okay. I'm excited to have lobster rolls with him over the weekend. Can you all agree that the story slams are a success?
yes.
I really like this. Like, I'm learning so much about you, and I'm like, okay, I want to go biking with you, and I'm like,
Fly fishing.
So I'm Helen Mastrian. I am a real estate agent with Hunt. My husband and I love Italy, as you guys do. We have some history there. And the best and worst day of a vacation in Italy is my most cherished memory in Lucca. So it wasn't exactly Lucca. So we were with another couple. It was our 25th wedding anniversary. And we decided to go to one of the 10 top romantic places in Italy, according to this guidebook, with this other couple. So we go to this place with the rocks and the cliffs, and we had an unbelievable lunch with the most amount of white wine from that region ever. And then we took a taxi ride across to go to the beach, and you rent beautiful chase lounges. And I'm not a good swimmer. I can do the side stroke. I'm going to use the apple thing. But I married a lifeguard just in case. My husband was a lifeguard. So I'm sunning myself, and all three of my husband and the other couple are in the water playing there's no waves. It was just a very, sound type flat water. So they kept on telling me to go in the water. You can't not be here and not go in the water. I'm like, I don't really care about swimming. They all come out, they sit down, they're sunning, and I'm like, all right, I'll go in the damn water. So I go, I'm splashing around, it's not even deep, and suddenly I'm like, oop, what was that? And I didn't actually know what it was until I came out of the water. I felt like a little burn, and I thought I stepped on a shell and cut myself. We left our beach and went back to the same place for dinner that we had lunch with, again, the most wonderful amount of white wine. And after sitting there for a couple of hours, I stood up to go to the restroom and felt the sea urchin spikes coming out of my foot, that I had stepped on a sea urchin. And so to this day, many, many years later, it still was the best. I mean, that's what I remember about that trip. I walked around, first of all, my husband had to shave the barbs off. They go in your foot and go like this, so you don't just pull them out. And I needed to get vinegar. And we walked around Lucca trying to find vinegar, but all they had was balsamic vinegar. And I needed white vinegar. And so the rest of the trip I was the ugly American with sneaker with my bag around my foot with the stinky white vinegar. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was one of the most incredible times I swam and stepped on a sea urchin. That's it.
Were you in Cinque Terre?
No, it was not Cinque Terre. It was Porto Venere.
Hi, I'm Tracy Pissarro, and I'm the owner of Lady Lily's Place, which is a cookie shop in Saratoga. I brought cookies, so hopefully you try them. I have been in Saratoga for a couple of years now. I opened the business in 22. I started the business during COVID. For 20 years, I worked in the music industry as a production manager, which is basically a glorified babysitter job, taking care of everything backstage that needs to happen. You work as the liaison between the touring people, which are the artist staff and local staff, to make sure that everything that needs to happen on a show day happens on a show day. So that's what I did for 20 years. And then my husband does the same work. COVID happened and we were out of work for 18 months. So during that time, I needed something to do. I was never a baker. I don't like to bake at all. I don't. But I was always artistic, and doing cookies gave me the opportunity to be artistic, because you can put art on a canvas, you can put it on a wall, you can put it anywhere, but if you put it on a cookie, everybody loves it.
That's true.
So I set a goal for myself to do 25 dozen cookies. Like, if I could get orders for 25 dozen cookies, and I did. And then I'm like, ooh, now I've got to make 25 dozen cookies. So I called a couple friends and asked them if they want to come and help me make cookies, and they did. And the idea was born. And after 18 months, my husband went back to work. And I decided I didn't want to. I'm like, I kind of really like this cookie thing. The second year I did Christmas orders, I had tripled my business. Wow. And now I've, when you start out at 25, it's not hard to triple that. But we do about last year was almost 300 dozen at Christmas time. And yeah, so I needed a brick and mortar. Actually, SPAC they built a new building during COVID for the VIP club, which has a kitchen. So during the off season, I had grown too big to be at home anymore. So they let me use their commercial kitchen to do my first big year of orders. And then after that, there was no going back to a home-based business, because it was too big at that point. So I actually bought a bakery that was established. It was more of a cafe, but she started as a bakery. And I took over that a couple of years ago, and the rest is history.
Cookies. Who continues from your Live Nation days, which you go now and put cookies in every dressing room for every show at SPAC, which is amazing. I'll volunteer to help with that. But who continues to order your cookies?
Well,
Bruce.
Well,
Springsteen?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Bruce loves my cookies. Yeah, I did.
Bruce loves my cookies.
Bruce loves my cookies.
If you eat a cookie, it's kind of like you're connected.
You know Bruce Springsteen?
Well, I mean, I don't know him.
Okay, I know.
I mean, I've met him. When you work backstage, you meet people. But in this instance, I did cookies for one of his shows, and about a week and a half later, his assistant called me. His name is Terrence, his personal assistant, and he said, I have Bruce Springsteen would like to speak with you. I said, yeah, right. And he said, no, I'm serious. And so he wanted to order more cookies, so I shipped him more cookies, and he continues to.
Does he buy them what's his order? Does he buy like around
Just
Christmas
like
time, just whenever?
No, just.
Do you charge him more money?
No.
So you have the images on the cookies, or do you just send him like the cookie without any image on it?
No, actually.
Or do you do all kinds of cookies?
I do just sugar cookies. We do a few other things, but primarily sugar cookies, and we can put anything on a cookie. So either hand decorated or printed. In his case, the ones I did for his show that he really liked, he chose a specific one of those and just got a dozen of those. And
was it an album cover?
It was a picture of him actually. On his most recent album cover.
Cool.
So I kind of took it from the album cover and distorted it a little bit and made it a fun one.
And didn't you go antiquing with Sheryl Crow?
Oh, we used to with that.
Okay. Come on, she can't blow her own horn. This is ridiculous. Come on.
Okay, so this was before I was a production manager. When I first started with Live Nation, early on, there was a show that she was at. We were in Darien. We covered 3 summer sheds, so between SPAC and all the way out to Buffalo. And this happened to be in Buffalo, and she wanted to go antiquing. She literally that year when she was touring had an extra truck with the show that was empty when she started, and she filled it up with antiques that she bought all over the country. So my job for the day was to take her shopping, antiquing, wherever she wanted to go.
The great cookie connector.
That's right. Very good.
Well,
Very good.
I think the thing about doing cookies backstage now, which Helen is so excited about, but it's kind of like you use your contacts, right? So that's what I did for a long time, and so that's where my contact base is. So, you know, when everyone that when people you do something new, people are excited for you and they want to help you out. So. A lot of the people that I worked with over the years have reached out and like, oh, let me order cookies. And they started ordering for shows just in catering. And then it became like, well, why aren't we doing this backstage? Why aren't we giving these to the artist? And I'm like, I don't know. Why aren't you? How would you like to? So this year is SPAC. And then if SPAC goes well, then next year there'll be a couple other venues that we will start doing them in as well.
Great.
So did you make cookies for like Heuser or something?
Hosier?
I
did.
Absolutely. Until I can.
Yeah, Niall Horan.
Wait, so you made cookies for him? Who else has been? There's a lot of people.
Lane
Dave
Wilson.
Matthews?
Dave Matthews, yeah.
Of course.
Oh, that's very cool.
So if we steal your cell phone or all these contacts in your cell phone,
You wouldn't know who they are.
Do you have it discreet?
Okay.
I'm so curious.
Jules.
Okay. I'm so curious.
all right.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Seriously Connected. It is the best podcast for women. And for part 2, tune in next week to hear more stories of overcoming challenges from 5 entrepreneurs. If you want to find out more about the Pro Talks, or maybe do one yourself, go to palettecommunity.com right on the internet.